Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Be a Professional. As always, my name is Francis Fiscal. I'm a fourth year International Bachelor of Arts here at Memorial, and I will be your host. In case you're new here and you're not quite sure what we're doing, Be a Professional is a career conversation series organized by the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, where we speak to different alumni of the faculty and get key info on how they were able to and how we can also forge our own unique career path. Our guest today is none other than Mr. Michael Fleet. He's a senior analyst with the Government of Canada, where he focuses on Iraq. He has previously worked as a senior researcher with the Institute on Governance on the Iraq team that implemented the Fiscal, Decentralization, and Resiliency project. His current research focus is on Iraqi politics, federalism, state building, and conflict dynamics. Prior to joining the Institute on Governance, Mike worked with Global Affairs Canada as a junior policy analyst. He also held a junior research fellowship at an international think tank where he wrote policy recommendations for the Canadian government on China's Belt and Road Initiative. Mike completed his master's degree in global governance from the Balsillie School of International Affairs at the University of Waterloo, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Memorial University of Newfoundland. Hi, Mike.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Perfect. All right. I usually like to start these by just asking what a day in the life of Michael Fleet looks like. What would you do on an average day?
Yeah, so it really depends on the day. It can vary wildly. As with my shop, we focus on international affairs, specifically with myself covering Iraq and some small Gulf states. It really depends on contemporary events and upcoming events on how they'll affect Canadian objectives and priorities and policy. So a typical day typically will be checking the news, checking on current events on how that could happen, or what our clients are across government, what are things that are catching their eye, to try and anticipate what the day will look like. Once in the office, it can change from consultations on products from across government, reviewing kind of policy proposals on how this aligns with our assessments on where countries are moving, or strategic assessments on how this will impact Canadian priorities going forward, as well as coordinating across other government departments, typically for us, Global Affairs Canada and Defense, as well as across partners globally. So, different departments within the US or with the Brits and the UK. And this can also involve us touching base with our missions and operations, within our relevant countries. So for me with Iraq, typically with our embassy, as well as with our operations being conducted with the Operation Impact, or NATO mission in Iraq. And this can mainly be folded under the Global Coalition to defeat Daesh. So it very much changes day by day.
For sure. Definitely fluctuating, but it does sound like quite a bit, very demanding. I also wanted to ask, what initially drew you to study politics and then eventually establish a career as an analyst or researcher as well?
Yeah. So at first I wanted to study history. I wanted to become a history teacher, namely from a great history teacher I actually had in high school. And after studying that or entering or think about going to university at MUN, another field that I kind of had some interest in was political science, namely due to the international relations side. So once I started studying that, I just kind of fell in love with the field itself. And at first, I studied a lot on Bosnia-Herzegovina, or focusing on the kind of conflict of around '94. And I was encouraged by a prof at the time to visit Bosnia, go through and stay with some family friends in Sarajevo, who encouraged a cross study with Iraq, which I did. And I, again, kind of fell into a rabbit hole from there and decided to make Iraq my core focus across all of my studies. And it's really by that I kind of focused on Iraq on a post-conflict institutional building way, that I just made that the subject of my master's, and tried to find ways to take what my core interest was to drive that towards finding a job with it, basically.
And is your current career path, specifically like an analyst? Um, I know in political science, I don't know what other jobs you might have contemplated while you were in your studies, but is your current role as a senior analyst, was that kind of what you were gunning for during your degree, or is that something you kind of found?
Yeah, I mean, a bit of both, gunning for and found. So originally going through my degree, I had a big focus on going international. So taking a look at jobs with the United Nations, with NATO, things like that. But at the time, I didn't really understand or under how that worked and what the field was, as well as just how many jobs there are across government or different departments here in Ottawa, for example, and what's possible. So once I came to Ottawa, the only thing that I really understood was that there, international relations or focus on that. That must be Global Affairs Canada. But there's a lot of other teams that do this across government. So you can go from Privy Council office where I'm working right now, or defense, or a variety of other shops around government that do have these kind of more niche capability shops that you can get hired into. So, like I said, to kind of summarize that, I did, I'm basically in the job that I was aiming for, but I accidentally, found myself within the government, and I'm happy I did. I mean, due to other reasons, family and life and so on and so forth. I'm happy that I managed to find my career path within the federal government.
Um, I also wanted to ask if there was a particular person or group of people that you looked up to when you were emulating, whether that be during your studies or in your wider professional career.
Hmm. I mean, that can be a wide question. I'd say for emulating, or I mean, like look up to. I mean, it's a easy answer, just basically saying your parents on that side. Um, but considering for with my career, there's been a lot of different folks that have really helped guide and mentor me along the way. Um, and at different stages of my career and kind of where I've come to now and still guiding me today, that have been exceptionally kind and with their time with me to help me find the next step and what do I need to get there and what kind of things do I need to do to have that. So it's a hard answer because there's a variety of people at different times that have
Yeah.
really helped me at this.
I mean, that's a great answer in and of itself as well. Um, I would also like to know if there were some practical things that you could, examples at least, you could give us about some things that you believe helped ease your transition going from um, bachelor's, then to your master's, and then to finding your career after that. Were there some things you think helped ease that transition?
Yeah, I would kind of sum it up in kind of two things. So the first is networking. Find the kind of career you want and talk to people who are doing it. Don't be afraid to cold email, cold call people. Find people around that field. Talk to your peers who are working on this stuff. The more you talk to people about your passions, with other people who are actively in that job who also share that passion, you're going to find something to connect with. And these are people who are actively doing it, can kind of tell you what the current job looks like. Here's how you get into this. Here are the things you need to do. uh, so again, networking can't be understated. It's a massive factor for this. The second bit is look for gaining practical experience. um, in this sense, you can do this in a variety of different ways. For example, for folks studying political science, for example, um, take some time to write some pieces or some thought pieces for in a think tank method or whatnot on your core passion of study, and then pitch it somewhere, and then refine it and keep building up those writing skills and those analytical skills, so that way you can have real pieces of analysis that are useful and you can show and get feedback on. And this not alone or finesses your own skills, but then you can have a product to show later on that you do actually care about the subject matter and you're willing to put in the time and effort to work on that. The other side of this too is as you're looking to try to get into the professional realm, and a part of this networking opportunities in chatting with people and being willing to say, go in and take a job somewhere, even if it is for like a casual contract or something, and you get some skills on, say, writing briefing notes. These are invaluable skills that will teach you how to write and think differently, and that can translate later on into progressing your career.
Um, Kind of going based on the first point you made there, I actually had a question that was specifically about networking. What role would you, if you don't mind giving us examples, how collaboration and networking as a whole has played a role in your professional life? Um, and any tips you have for students who might be looking to, start networking and start building those connections, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, for me, networking has just been exceptionally valuable for a couple of reasons. One, aside from helping me, finding people who can give me advice and tips on moving forward with my career, you just build a broader network amongst people who professionally are your colleagues and your peers. These are people who you can trade ideas with, and especially for analysis and kind of working in this field, you can get a better understanding of who fits where, kind of where you fit into that picture, and what kind of career you want to make out of it. It's been exceptionally valuable for me, and again, fundamentally, a lot of jobs are networks of people. So if you want to move into a field, you need to talk to people. You need to understand how that works, and to move into the second question on tips for people looking to get into, how do you establish a network? um, a lot of this comes from a couple things, like I said, don't be afraid to cold call or send an email to someone. Just send, explain who you are, where your interests are, and say, would you be okay if I can have a from a coffee or a chat over Teams or whatever. um, Most of the time people will be more than happy to share their experiences and how they can help you with it. And if they're not, then they're probably not somebody you wanted to talk to in the first place. So it's just don't it can feel like a bit of a jump, but don't be afraid to be willing to kind of put yourself out there and chat with people, because again, if people are working in that field and you have an interest in it, you already have something to talk about. It's not like you're both nerds on this stuff, so be happy to nerd out on that. The other thing to kind of note with that, and as a tip for students, um, in chatting with people, have like a mentally an objective that you want with this. If you're chatting with someone, you know be pretty upfront to say, I want to figure out how to get a job doing this, or what do I need to do. um, so that way it's not just it's a conversation that goes somewhere, can benefit you as well, as you're chatting with these different professionals who work in the career.
Great. That's definitely useful information, specifically for myself as well. Kind of going on your second point now, you mentioned kind of building up practical skills. Are there any skills or important lessons that you may have acquired specifically during your academic career, whether that be your bachelor's or your master's, that you would say have translated well into the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a bunch of different things. First off, like thinking critically about the subject matter you're reading, the ability to write, which is deeply understated. I mean, if you can't write, it is the linchpin of working within most places across government. um, as well as the subject matter. I've focused on Iraqi politics and cases of that, and this is what I do now. A lot of the base understanding that I made, or kind of built up through my undergrad and masters, is continuing today, kind of serve that knowledge base on what I do and the kind of analysis I put forward for government. um, and then kind of the last point on that is, don't underestimate, especially going through classes, the value of giving like briefings or presentations. um, in government, especially in positions I'm in, where we're briefing could be up to 2 to 4 times a week. The ability to take complex information and understand it, and then say it in a way for others to understand. So it's invaluable. You have to be able to take information and be able to say it in a way that is useful, and convey the so what. Why am I telling you this information? it's critical, and this is that those skill sets that you develop will be useful for anywhere you go. I mean, just for example, look at people speaking on like TEDx or whatever, taking these kind of complex concepts and being able to put them out in a way that is coherent and understandable. Um, it's these kinds of briefing skills are key and critical to a lot of different career paths.
Definitely a great answer. Um, Kind of piggybacking on that as well. Were there any specific programs that you may have utilized while you were in Memorial to maybe help develop some of those skills, whether that be extracurricular or not?
Yeah, I mean, I can coming from among the kind of different things I focused on. I mean, I was in the political science society. I did the MUN ambassadors program, and I'd taken advantage as well of the Heidelberg and Harlow trips as well through MUN. Um, yeah, I mean, concerning those two things, especially the ambassador program on like etiquette and how to kind of open up and speak to people who are complete strangers to you, and begin a conversation, have that stuff. These things are again exceptionally useful. um Say for example you're working or looking to network across folks within government, and you're at a dinner with them, and a lot of times people say this is a hypothetical situation, like never going to be at a dinner with someone that you're trying to get a job from, but that is actually how I managed to chat with people to get into my career with the or my job at the NGO with the Institute on Governance. Um, learning these kind of skill sets on sitting down with people and having these conversations and have that lead to something, uh, from things like the ambassadors program was, exceptionally useful.
This is a really important question I really wanted to ask was, were you always optimistic about your job prospects, or was that a source of stress for you while you were completing your studies?
Oh, massive source of stress. I mean, so like, I really hope I get paid for this someday. It's always stressful. I mean, it's not easy to get into that stuff, and being open to different opportunities, or kind of recognizing if something is like a step towards something else. Like you might not be able to get to your exact job on day one, um, but you might work in something that will give you the skill base to be able to get in that. So a lot of different putting things together to kind of understand that it's a pathway towards getting to the career you're trying to get to. But that doesn't mean it's not stressful. It was a tough journey, but again, if you're passionate and want to keep working at something and are open to new doors and opportunities, things tend to work out. And again, take advantage of the networks that you've built along the way to help you in doing that.
Now, were there any things you did to help ease that stress, or did you kind of just stomach it till they worked out?
Oh yeah, I mean, I lived my best, undergrad life really. But I mean, considering things to like, deal with stress, just, you know, I was lucky to have a good like support system amongst my, friends and family, and whatnot. Um, uh, make sure to take a lot of time, focusing on yourself, between, you know, exercise or whatever sports or something that you do, any hobbies, and kind of recognize that, during university it can be highly stressful. Um, take time to still focus on yourself and your own mental health and your own, well-being. If you obsess on it too much, you're just going to burn yourself out. So, it's healthy to remind yourself of that every now and again. That's okay to take a break.
You kind of already answered this question, but I'll ask you anyways, in case there's any other things you want to add on. But is there any advice you would give to a student who's concerned about career prospects? You kind of mentioned taking one step at a time, being open to other skills that might not be exactly what you're looking for. Is there anything else you wanted to add in terms of advice about to students who may be really, really stressed about what exactly they're going to do after they graduate?
I mean, I mean, I guess it kind of goes in two ways. Like one is for some people trying to figure out like, I don't know what I want to do. Um, Figure out what's the kind of thing that you really enjoyed during your time, throughout your bachelor's program. What's something that you found particularly fascinating, and then build from there. Find a thing that you enjoyed, a class or a paper or whatever, and then start building that up and working it through into, okay, I really enjoyed this subject matter. Um, what are things that this can build from? And then once you kind of begin narrowing that down, begin thinking through, what are some career pathways I could get from this interest, and then again, don't be afraid to talk to people working in that career, because they'll also be able to not like give you kind of like a realistic understanding of like, you know, here's what you need to do to get there, here's the availability of work, so on and so forth. So you can kind of begin to understand the field you're getting into without being surprised by it. And then that same bit of advice for someone who does know, like, I want to work in this is what I want to do. um, Talk to people doing that, as well as, kind of understanding that you might actually find some other jobs along the way that you equally love. Something for myself, I never really thought I'd enjoy programming skills, programming in sense of um, kind of NGO, programming. So in sense like, budgeting, setting your own objectives, how to define success, how to measure that success, what does that mean, so on and so forth. And these are, again, these kind of programming skills from a project management kind of point of view, I never really expected I would enjoy, but I actually enjoy a lot. And it's those are other skill sets they can use for leveraging later on in your career. Because that's the thing again too, like a career is not just a job. A job is a step in your career, and you build that along the way. So be open to other prospects along the way too.
Definitely build up your portfolio as you go. Um, I wanted to ask, this is a bit of a self-serving question for myself as well. For BA students who may be interested in, might have similar career aspirations, and whether that be in research or in government or even as an analyst like yourself, is there anything you wish someone had told you during your studies that you think might have helped you out as you made your transition into the workforce and then your wider career?
I would say, I mean, I know I keep harping on the point about hitting it or being willing to just cold email people, but I do wish that I was encouraged to do that a bit more. Um, the other side too is, don't be afraid to uh, and also not just cold email, like, if you're on Twitter, if you find an analyst you really like, send them a message. They'll probably be delighted that someone's reading their work. The Again, just, constantly hitting on that point. Don't be afraid to do that. That's how you begin to, get your name known, and get to understand what that field looks like, and what things you can do, so you can avoid some headaches along the way. The other thing, a bit of advice I wish I had was actually two things. One, if you want to go into the federal government, make sure that you are studying French. That is, very, very useful. And two, if you have the ability and the means, if you're studying international relations or studying a specific country, for my case, Iraq, if you can find time along the way, don't stress yourself out over it. But if you can find the means to begin, um, language training. So, for myself, studying Arabic. Um, but these kinds of different things can come with time, and also don't stress yourself out on it if you're already balancing a full course load, and then someone's telling you to, like, oh, just go ahead and add some more stuff to the pile. That doesn't necessarily help, uh, but kind of keep these things in the back of your mind as you move forward.
Right, well, that was pretty much most of the questions I had. The last question was pretty much just a more general version of the one before, which is pretty much any parting words for BA students in general, about the degree, about school, about pretty much anything you want to say.
Sure. I mean, kind of taking the bit about, taking a couple steps when talking about, like, for school, enjoy what you're doing. If you are finding courses that, or the general field you're in, to be miserable, don't be afraid to, change direction and put some thought into what you care about and what you enjoy. There's a lot of people who absolutely loathe, their jobs, and that sounds awful. be sure to kind of take some time to think about what you care about, what things you enjoy, and then figure out a way to move into that field. Because if you care about it, if you actually care about what you do, and have a passion for it, that's going to show. And then, as with time, as you keep on moving into that, that's how you actually, excel in your career, because you actually, care about what you're doing. Um, Concerning, with school and whatnot, again, don't burn yourself out on this stuff. It's exceptionally difficult, and it's hard, and it's very taxing. And so be sure to carve out some time during your days to take care of yourself and take care of your own mental health, especially throughout the past couple of years and this COVID mess. It's incredibly important not to burn yourself out on this stuff, because if you can't do that, you're doing a disservice to yourself.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions. I'm sure they were very valuable, if not to anyone else than myself as a political science student. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. And if there's anyone who ever wants to have a conversation about this, I'd be more than happy to chat.